Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in and welcome back to another episode. This will be episode 2 of the four-wheel drive off-road Javelin build. If you guys didn't get a chance to check out episode 1, I'll leave that down. I'll add it to the playlist and then leave it down in the description. But a lot done on episode 1. So we got the front and rear gearbox assembled. We're going chain drive, so super excited for that one. We got the upper and the top, or the upper and the lower chain guides and chain rails and covers. We got the rear aluminum gearbox or transmission side plates on. The rear bumper, we got the bottom skid plate, front rails, the upper control arm mounts, and then the ended up going with the Jazz Rider aluminum servo saver. I've kind of read that that was maybe the only slight weakness. I've known some people who have broke like the top arm that goes on here. I guess that's plastic, but yeah, I just opted to go with metal servo saver because I try to do those on all my Kyoshos. It helps the steering a lot, be a lot more accurate and precise. Other than that, we got the support for the upper and lower chain guides, and then ended up getting the slipper clutch on. Like I mentioned in episode 1, that was kind of uneventful. I thought there was a lot more going on with the slipper clutch, but it was still cool to assemble it because that was actually the first time that I assembled it. This little piece right here, I forget what it is called. I think that's for the idler gear. Yeah, the idler gear shaft. I would highly recommend to red Loctite that, just because it has been known to loosen, and if that gets loose, then your gears are not going to be happy. So other than that, we're actually going to jump into, I think, front and rear upper tie rods, suspension rods, and then we're actually going to start getting into the rear shock tower, and I think front and rear control arm. So super excited to start getting some suspension on this. So we're gonna get that knocked out, and then I'll update you guys along the way. All right, moving along super nicely. Rear arms, and then suspension links or tie rods, whatever you want to call them. I didn't film all of that because it's uneventful and takes quite a while, and quite frankly, it's not my favorite thing to do, but nonetheless, it needs to get done. But yeah, these were a little tricky. You can probably see it a little bit better here. This is these suspension shafts. I'm used to E-clips, and I thought that's what it was going to be, but it's not. You have to use a little grub screw. So the little grub screw goes in there. There's a little flat part on the suspension shaft, and then that's how you lock it into place. So that was definitely different and new to me. What I did was I got a Sharpie and I marked on the head of the suspension shaft where the flat part was, so the grub screw can lock onto it, because once it goes in there you really can't see it too good. On this end you can see when it's flat, but it's hard to kind of judge it. So yeah, a little trick for those who haven't built this one yet. That's what I did. I put a little Sharpie mark on it so that way I can see the orientation. But those are the rears. Got the fronts, same thing. No E-clips, use a little grub screw right there. And the suspension shaft went in on the front. Also got the front and rear shock towers on. So fronts are there, and the rears are right here. Super nice pieces. Their kits and all the pieces are very, very nice. And then the shock mounts right up there. So next we get to do the steering knuckles and spindles. Looks like the front, the bearings, and then the hub adapters. So and then looks like the dog bone cups and shafts. So actually it's going together way faster than I thought. An amazing kit. Cannot get over that chain. Simply amazing. But yeah, we're gonna get those knocked out, and I will update you guys when everything's done. right, got everything assembled. I just did the front arm linkage or connecting arms. I just did those off camera because, yeah, those are uneventful, but yeah, I got everything on. Front spindles and uprights and knuckles. Those feel really, really cool. I don't know why. I think it's cool when the dog bone goes through the knuckles and into the spindles. Again, I always get car parts confused with RC parts, but same difference. And we got the rear, same thing. Spindles or knuckles or uprights, whatever you want to call it. And looks and feels really, really good. So we're gonna go on to the top plate now and get all that assembled, and I think we're gonna move on to finally some shocks. So I'm gonna get this knocked out and I'll be back to show you guys. All right, we are back. Got that top plate all finished. Went together beautifully. I had messed, wasn't paying attention on this. It needed to screw in a certain way, and apparently I just wanted to ignore that. But yeah, everything went together super, super good. On the top plate, get the battery brackets on. This little thing right there is actually for the driver. This one's different. I wonder how it's going to work out. So the driver pretty much just slides in. There's a little gap. So it slides in under there. It's got some indentations, and then it kind of just, there's a hole in the front of the driver, and it kind of just clips into there. So I haven't really heard about people having an issue with the driver popping out, but yeah, I'm kind of used to the driver getting secured via screws, but this one seems a little bit different. But yeah, it went together beautifully. Shocks, so they have a couple different specifications. They say to use like if you're going to use the 100 shock oil, which for Kyosho is 7.5, and it's just insanely thin. Like, it's crazy. Super, super thin oil. So they have a couple different pistons that you can use. So they use, if you're going to use the stock ones, they say to use these A in the front, which are 2 holes that are pretty small. And then they say to use the C in the front, which are the back, which are the same diameter holes, but it has 3. Then they notate that if you're going to be using it on high traction surfaces, you can use a 200 to 300 weight shock oil. And then they have a B piston, which is just like the A piston. So it has 2 holes, but the holes are a little bit bigger on the B pistons, and they say to use that front and back. So I want to use the A and the C in the rear, but what I ended up doing is so the 7.5 weight Kyosho shock oil, and then I got the lightest shock oil that Tamiya has, which is 200 right there. So this, I think Tamiya does it a little bit different. So it's like the number times 2, so it's like equivalent to like a 10 weight shock oil times 2. It's pretty much what I gathered. So what I did is I would like to run a hair thicker oil, because for me it was just a little too watery. And since I'll mainly be running this a lot on tarmac or asphalt, I wanted to run a slightly thicker shock well. So I got one of my empty Kyosho shock bottles. I filled it up with the 100 weight about 3/4 of the way, and then I added the rest of this shock oil. You can tell it's a lot thicker, so I think this would be equivalent to like a 20 weight shock oil, and this is a 7.5. So I wanted to run just a hair thicker, because generally what I end up doing is whatever the spring compression that Kyosho recommends on the front and rear springs, I generally run about, at least in the rear, about 1 to 1.5 millimeters more of preload on the spring, just because I notice it kind of likes to sag a lot in the rear. So with a little bit more rebrown or compression, I wanted to have a little bit thicker shock oil. So I think it'll work out good. Like I said, filled it up about 3/4 ways with the Kyosho 100 shock oil, and then the rest I did the 200 Tamiya. So I think it'll turn out good, and like I said, I'll still play with the spring rebound, but that's generally what I do. So I'll continue to play around with that after I get it mounted, but yeah, I kind of have everything laid out over there. And then these end up being the fronts, but gorgeous aluminum, metallic red shock bodies, super nice. These are considered big bore, so we have the fronts, which are definitely even bigger than, you know, the 2-wheel drive Scorpion shocks that I built. I think these are even slightly bigger than the Turbo Scorpion, meaning more capacity. So those are the fronts, and then the rears are ginormo, super big boys for the rear. So beautiful. So I'll get these knocked out, get them on mounted, and then I'll update you guys when everything's all done. All right, shocks are amazing, gorgeous, red, look fantastic, feel really good. Shocks are really nice. I think it's what they can refer to as like an X valve or something like that. A lot more components than I'm used to, like in a typical Tamiya, like, you know, CVA damper, but yeah, they feel really, really good. So the manual calls for 14 millimeters, so the gap between the top here and then there's a little line indentation on the shock, 14 millimeters in the rear. and 4 millimeters in the front. I ended up doing 14.7 millimeters in the rear and 4.5. Just like I was saying earlier, a little bit extra weight running a chain, an aluminum or metal servo saber, so nothing crazy, but I've kind of noticed on some of the Kyoshos they set it a little bit softer as far as rebound and spring. I am running a hair bigger tire, nothing too crazy, but like I said, a hair bigger. And since this will be on a lot of tarmac or street, a little bit more higher grip, I wanted to run just a little bit more compression or rebound on the springs, but I can still fine tune it when I get it on and drive it and all that jazz. But yeah, feels really, really good. So we're gonna move on to, I believe, the front and rear bumper and start getting some of the electronics squared away. So I'll be doing just a 1060 Hobby Wing. Power Hobby is pretty much just a renamed ESC Dean's connector on that one. This is actually the servo they recommend, but it's the Kyosho Metal Gear servo. I like to run these my Kyoshos, just try to keep them all the same parts as much as I can, but that's the part number there. So it's actually the one that they recommend. And then I'll be running my Futaba R203 receiver. So I'm gonna get those mounted up, as well as the bumper and all the electronics, and I'll be back to show you when everything is complete. All right, we are all done with that. I just did the mounting of the receiver here and the ESC, which is on this side, upside down, off camera, because it's just too much fiddling around and yeah, all that good jazz. But you kind of have to, the instructions tell you, you know, you kind of have to line it up with these two holes, because the driver fits over this, but it needs to fit a certain way so the driver can go in there, and then there's enough room for the wire. So that was a little bit tricky, but I ended up mounting it a hair farther back than what the manual called for, just because I wanted to have enough room for those wires. And then, yeah, crazy that the ESC mounts underneath upside down, but yeah, it does. So I got that mounted, and then the cool thing is it has like little provisions for the wires to go through, to plug into the receiver. So I'll mount that and zip tie that back here, kind of clean out of the way. Other than that, I think this is going to wrap up, what are we on, episode 2, video 2? So still a little bit left to do. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention, I thought this was the rear bumper, but no, or the rear cover, whatever. But it actually includes 2 different front bumpers. So like a kind of racing, lower weight, low profile one. And then this one right here, which is on the box art. I actually like this one, but it's super reminiscent of the Hot Shot 2 front bumper. Yeah, Hot Shot 2 front bumper. It kind of has the holes, but it's actually a really nice bumper. It says Kyosho. It's kind of labeled right there, but yeah, I like the bigger bumper. I don't know, I think it just fits the buggy better than this little kind of mini bumper, but there is a weight difference, so yeah, that was kind of interesting to see. But yeah, I got a little bit left, so we have to, the servo also kind of like mounts upside down over here, and then the wire gets fed up you know, through the little provision right there. So that's kind of cool, but gnarly. But it is kind of hidden and out of the way. So I think that's what, you know, they were going through, and kind of puts all the weight in the middle where the battery is, in front and in behind of the battery. So I think that's what they were going for. But so I have the servo and servo bracket, servo linkage, got to get that mounted. There is the spur gear, so I have to get the spur gear attached and mounted. What else do we have? The tires, I already knocked that out. And then the cage, which I'm super excited about, and then the wing. So the cage and the wing will get mounted. So we're gonna do that in video 3 or episode 3. Yeah, I also have to get the driver painted and all that jazz. I think I know what color I'm gonna do the driver, but I'll think on that, and then I'll let you guys know in video 3. So hopefully when we get those things knocked out in video 3, we'll see her as a rolling chassis and all done. But I appreciate everybody tuning into this one. Any questions, let me know. Let me know what you guys think so far. These shocks are just gorgeous. Like, I think one of the better RC shocks that I like as far as assembly and looks. Yeah, those really go great. So other than that, yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. And I'm super excited to get this thing done and finally test her out. So as always, if you guys are not outside playing with your RC cars, or maybe indoors if it's snowing, raining, wherever you are, get them off the shelf, dust them off, play with them, get them dirty. That's what they're made for. And we'll see you guys on the next one.